Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Shape Unplugged. I'm your host, Stephanie Morris, and today I have two amazing, awesome guests joining me, who also happen to be Teachers of the Year for Shape America. They are Beth Bolger, who is a K through 5 physical education teacher at Lincoln Avenue School in Saville, New York, and Tanner Roos, who's a K through 4 physical education teacher at Lynn Grove Elementary School in the Linn-Mar School District in Marion, Iowa. So hi to you both, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks
Hey,
so much
Steph,
for having us.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
So I'm sure that everybody is curious to hear a little bit about how your summer's been. I know that last year was so incredibly challenging. I hope that you found ways to restore and maybe practice some self-care. Any thoughts with us about sort of what that experience was like?
Beth, you can go first.
I was going to say, I don't know about you, Tanner, but after last year, specifically the summer going into this year, so right after we knew, we were out for COVID and how we were going to teach, it was a lot of presenting and a lot of meetings, and just I felt like I kind of lost that summer a little bit, just because it was like, all right, here we go, let's rally the troops and let's figure out what's going to happen this year. Let's get creative. Let's get talking and figuring it out. So I felt like last year the summer was kind of a blur and disappeared. So this year was my main thing was to put technology a little bit aside, find time to do it, but then set the limit. Once it got past like 11 a.m., that was it. I had to turn it off. I had to walk away. I had to no more, not even my phone. I felt my eyes were bothering me, and just go work out, do something fun. I love to paint, spend a little time in nature, and spend a little extra time with my family that I felt I kind of lost that on during a year. So that for me was very important, just to breathe again.
That's nice. I did a lot with nature too. We like to camp as a family. We couldn't find a lot of time to camp, so we ended up selling the camper at the end of the summer, but spent so much time outside. My kids play baseball, so you sit behind home plate for 200, 300 hours a summer just sitting there. But some people think, oh, that's the kids' time, but no, for me that was perfect. Enjoying the weather, just sitting back, doing what I like to do, and relaxing. So it's kind of how I got my stress-free summer.
There you go.
Nice. That's wonderful. I'm so glad both of you had some good experiences. And so speaking of a very challenging year last year, I know that our listeners would love to hear one thing that stood out for each of you about this past year. What was one good or positive thing that might have happened that you've reflected on and that perhaps even you're learning from and you're taking with you as you go into this next school year?
I don't know about you, Tanner, but I think that a lot of positive came out of this. A lot of times people think it was all negative. And I think that this was a way to really get creative and think outside the box and really kind of, get the creative juices flowing. So for me, I came up with some really cool new units, which I had a blast with. So Tanner knows I'm a big skateboarder, and I teach a giant skateboarding unit with my students. So knowing that I was going to be outside all last year, I was writing grants, getting more razor scooters, and because those are easier to sanitize as opposed to all the equipment I was going to have to do with skateboarding, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that. So I was going to flea markets over the summer. I was picking up scooters. I was picking up sleds. So hopefully we were going to get snow, which we got plenty of this year, and to do sleigh ride units. We were building forts. So that was the bonus, finding new ways to try new things, to make lemonade out of lemons, and taking it as an opportunity to say, hey, we've never done this before. So this is the year. Let's go. Let's have this. What about you, Tanner?
Yeah, and Beth and I, we talked over the phone this winter, I guess it was the winter after I got to know her a little bit, because I knew that I needed help. We were going to start some new units, and we ended up getting a whole skater like razor unit. I talked to Beth about how she organizes it, and it definitely helped my students. But I think the thing that I probably took the most out of last year was trying to read people and not seeing their face, you only seeing their eyes, and just trying to figure out, how am I going to pick up on, is this kindergartner sad? Are they happy? Are they excited? Because, at first you didn't know anything. It was just gone. For me, it was hard to tell. And I think as the year gone on and progressed, I got to know the kids a little bit better, and I got to be able to tell their body language, what do they need without them saying it, because they can always communicate it. I think that's where I probably grew the most.
I love that. I think that is so powerful. And especially as we think about all of the loss, the learning loss in terms of social emotional learning, I think that that is such a really important takeaway. So thank you for sharing that. And Beth, I love that about the skateboarding. My oldest kiddo is attempting to learn to skateboard. So we'll see how that takes. But that's great. Yeah. So along the lines of positive things that many of us use to propel us forward, right? Keep us going, keep us feeling motivated. Can you both share what you're most excited about going into this next year? And it can truly be anything. It can be personal or professional. But what are you most excited about going into this 21-22 school year?
I think for me, the thing I'm the most excited about is there's a lot of things we didn't do last year. We were all the different models. We went from hybrid. We did everything that you could do. And there was a lot of stuff we didn't get to. So for me, it's those kindergartners that are now first graders. And that's my daughter's age, and she's in my class, that get to see some new things they've never seen before. And everything is so exciting to them that, the way you talk makes it exciting. But just the opportunities that my daughter's going to learn about. She starts soccer this year. She's never played soccer before. She's never experienced it in PE class because we didn't really get to do much of it last year. Because by the time we were doing soccer, it was, okay, we're at home and you're learning it in whatever ball you have at home. So it's not soccer. So we're going to try to learn some of those foot skills. And I think my kids are going to have a great year as long as we get to stay at school.
Yeah, it's true. Even some of my students, like the first graders, they really haven't been in the gym. They don't know the gym as we know it, because in Lincoln, the gymnasium was a fifth grade classroom. So they haven't even walked in. They just see it as old desks. So this will be new for them to be able to walk in and you get to see their eyes on for the first time. I think the one thing I'm really excited about is during the pandemic, I got certified in autism exercise specialist, and I'm super excited to use that. I just love working with students with special needs. And I also learned all about Exercise Buddy, the application, and I am so excited to get it going and using it. So for me, I'm ready. I can't wait.
That's awesome. I have so much appreciation for that, especially as a parent of a special needs kid. So I think that's really awesome and fantastic. Thank you both. So again, along the lines of sort of things that will propel us moving forward into this next year, as you look back and reflect on this past year, I know professional development definitely didn't look the same, right? Very little opportunity for those in-person trainings and conferences. But what is one thing that you learned through professional development, or maybe from a peer, doesn't matter, that you plan to implement this next year?
I was gonna say, I don't know about you, but like I learned so much this year with technology. Board games, just turning regular board games, Battleship and things like that, and adding movement to them. And with the technology pieces like Google Slides and everything, I learned so much about that. And I was able to make them into like interactive games, but introducing movement and also social and emotional learning. I did like a coping skills game, and they got to pick the coping skills and draw it. So they had some STEM and art involved too. So taking everything we learned this year and just elevating it to the next level has been so awesome. And it's been great to also advocate our program through all of the use of technology to really showcase what we do in physical education to the parents, because they're watching behind the screens and they see it. So it's been great just for the advocacy piece for physical education and health.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I took away that I'm really excited to use is, I have presented quite a few times, and I got to present with Kyle Bragg a few times this summer, or this winter going into the spring. And, you really get to have those conversations with, we talked about maximizing physical education. That was one that we kept on putting out there, but we put it together, and I was looking at how he does things in his classroom and, asking more questions about it, and just to have those little conversations that are like the why behind it. I know a lot of people like to go to conferences and learn all the new games. Well, I don't care about that stuff. I want to know the why, the how, the what are all the things you're thinking about before that game comes out. And I was able to pick some brains, and not just Kyle. There's a lot of people I got to do that with. And I think those are the things that I take away the most, at this point in my career that are going to help me and help my students.
I love both of those answers. Thank you both so much for sharing. I think that that's such powerful reflection that you from this past year, as chaotic and challenging and just exhausting at times as it was. I think those are two really amazing examples of unexpected ways in which we learn and grow as professionals that you're taking forward. So thank you for sharing. I think that's fantastic. My final question for today. I think that so many educators and parents came to a truly new appreciation for the subjects of health education and physical education this past year. Dealing with a global pandemic, I think that more administrators understood why we need to teach these critical subjects, and I think more parents had the opportunity to understand what really quality physical education and health education look like. I know I certainly had the opportunity to experience some of that through the virtual school environment. And I think it's that there are so many great things that came from that. But can each of you please share with us, speaking of why, the why that Tanner just mentioned, can you talk a little bit to your personal why for teaching this subject and why it's meant so much to you and why you continue to strive your hardest on behalf of your students, especially during a global pandemic?
Tanner, you want to go first? You want me to?
I'll go first. I think my why has changed since this pandemic. I have 3 children. I've got a 6th grader and a 4th grader right now that they are somewhat social, but they like to play on their tablet. They like to sit down inside. I hear the doorbell ring, a neighbor comes by, and one of them doesn't want to go outside because they're, engaged in what's happening on their screen. And I think my why is changing to, I want kids to feel comfortable going outside and having fun and doing something different than maybe what they did during those first few months of the pandemic where everybody felt locked down, where it's okay to get outside. We've got neighbors in my neighborhood that are my kids' ages that, they don't go over and ring their doorbell. I want to get my kids used to the idea of go find somebody to play. And, play can be a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be the same thing every time, but definitely try to get outside and do something. And I want to give those kids the skills. I want to make sure that they enjoy it. More than just tell them, hey, screens are bad, because screens aren't always bad, but I just want them to know that that's an option, and that's a really good option, is to be outside and do something.
That's awesome, Tanner. For my why, I have to say it's almost become a little stronger, not stronger, but more predominant during the pandemic. My why has always been teaching the students the power of the mind and the body connection. And I want them to always develop strength, not only in the physical, but especially in the mental as well, and to understand that those two need to go together. When I was younger, I struggled a lot with anxiety and depression and panic attacks, and I share that with my students. It's always something I share because I think it's important to be open about that and speak about mental health. And I would allow, when I was younger, negative thoughts to control me. So I always want to teach my students how to put positive thoughts in their brain and how the negative thoughts affect them. And I always tell them, you are what you tell your brain. So if you tell your brain, I can't, you're setting it yourself up for that. You have to tell yourself I can and follow it and believe and set a goal, and just teaching the students that. But during the pandemic, specifically with everything that's going on, a lot of people were isolated. I saw it with my own children, my own son, and it's very difficult. And for me, the focus was, this is an opportunity to really put mental health out there, to speak about it, to teach kids it's okay to feel this way, and go through teach them the zones of regulation, teach them these coping skills that they can do. Because if I had that when I was younger, it would be a different life. And I'm very blessed that I was able to get those skills later. But if we can teach these children who are dealing so much right now with anxiety If we can give them those skills, we are giving them the greatest gift in the world, I feel. So during the pandemic, for me, it will always be my why, but it's very important right now.
And I appreciate that. I've got children who are, going through some of the same things that you talk about, and to have an adult besides the parent who's giving them the opportunity to learn about that in a setting where everybody, whether they're experiencing the anxiety and whatnot, where everybody's getting the same information, they don't feel singled out. I appreciate that.
Oh, thanks, Tanner.
I do too. I have so much appreciation for it. I think one of the things I've been most excited about seeing happen in our field is this increased connection between teaching kids that taking care of their mind as well as taking care of their body will help them live their healthiest life, that all these things are connected. And just to what you said, Beth, that we're destigmatizing these conversations and just having them in authentic, honest ways is so powerful and so amazing. So thank you for all of that. Yeah. And Tanner, I love your example about your why changing as a parent who felt all the pressures of that lockdown moment and having 3 kids, feel like they couldn't go outside and how that affected them on so many levels. I could not agree more. And I just think that that's incredible. And I love that example. So thank you also for sharing.
Yeah.
So thank you both again for being guests on today's show. I so appreciate your time. I know how busy you both are as teachers. Any final words for our listeners today before we sign off?
Join your state, join your national organizations. Shape Iowa is new. We're not Iowa AFERT anymore. So join up.
Yeah, and advocate for this amazing profession we have. It's incredible. And the more we advocate and promote for it, the more we put our message out in the world.
Could not have said it better. Thank you so much. Excellent last words for everybody listening. And to everybody listening, thank you for your time today and tuning in to Shape Unplugged. I'm Stephanie Morris, your host, and I hope that you'll join us next time. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.